Mashni, thank you very much for joining us on the programme and for your insight. We stay in the Middle East. On Monday, massive fires broke out at a cemetery factory in Yemen following Israeli airstrikes on the Hodeidah port and nearby areas. The strikes came just a day after Houthi rebels fired a missile that landed near Israel's main airport. Footage aired by Houthi-run media showed scenes of devastation at the Barjil cement factory east of Hodeidah. Firefighters were seen battling intense blazes. One body was found among the rubble of a collapsed structure. At least 21 people were injured, according to the Houthi-run health ministry. Residents told that more than 10 strikes hit areas around Hodeidah, including Salakana and Al-Hawak. The Houthis have since sealed off the affected zones, including the port and the factory. Israel said it targeted what it called Houthi terrorist infrastructure. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was seen overseeing the operation from the Air Force Command Center in Tel Aviv, joined by Defense Minister Israel Katz and Army Chief Eyal Zamir. While the Houthis claimed the airstrikes were a joint Israeli-US operation, a US official denied any involvement. We once again stay in the Middle East, where Iran is warning the United States not to fall into what it calls a disaster in the region, blaming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for stoking tensions. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made the statement on Monday, accusing Netanyahu of meddling in US policy and pushing Washington towards another regional war. In a post on X, Araghchi warned the US against making any mistake involving Iran, saying that Netanyahu is dictating terms to President Donald Trump over Iran's diplomacy. He also slammed US backing for Israel's military campaign in Gaza and its strikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen, describing both as failed efforts serving Netanyahu's agenda. According to Araghchi, American actions in support of Israel have brought nothing for the American people. This comes after Netanyahu blamed Iran for the latest Houthi missile strike near Israel's main airport and vowed to retaliate. Separately, Iran is pressing the US to drop what it calls unrealistic demands in stalled nuclear talks. In a call with EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, Araghchi said a deal is still possible, but only if Washington adopts more logical and flexible positions. Tehran maintains it is ready to address nuclear concerns, but insists the path forward lies with the US. Let's now move over to Europe, where tensions are rising again between Russia and Ukraine, after another wave of drone attacks shook the Russian capital overnight. Russia says Ukraine launched multiple drones towards Moscow for the second night in a row. At least 19 were shot down before reaching the city, according to Moscow's mayor. All 4 of the capital's major airports were shut for hours, but later reopened. No casualties have so far been reported, though debris from the drones landed on major roads. Meanwhile, Russian officials say several other cities, including Penza and Zaporizhzhia, were also targeted. Ukraine hasn't officially commented yet, but Kharkiv's mayor says Russia also launched drone attacks on Ukrainian cities overnight. One person was killed in a strike on Odessa. In the border region of Kursk, Russia claims Ukraine tried to cross into its territory. Military bloggers from the Russian side say Ukrainian forces used armoured vehicles to breach tank traps and minefields, triggering heavy clashes. Russia also reported missile strikes and the destruction of a power substation in Rylisk, where 2 teenagers were reportedly injured by shrapnel. Kiev says its forces remain active inside the Kursk region, 9 months after first crossing the border in a surprise operation. Officials in Ukraine's Sumy region, just 12 kilometers from the border, are now urging civilians to evacuate amid growing security concerns. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump says Vladimir Putin's announcement of a 3-day ceasefire doesn't sound like much, but it is a lot. Trump tells reporters during an event at the White House, with the price of oil down in Russia, the US is in a good position to resolve the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Listen in.
Putin just announced a 3-day ceasefire which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot if you knew where we started from, because they were not. We had a president that for 3 years didn't speak to Putin, and it all shouldn't have happened. This is a war that should have never happened, and you're going to be very disappointed when you find out the real number of people that were killed. It's far greater, many times greater, I believe, but far greater than the numbers that you're putting out. It's a very, very deadly, horrible war.
Conservative Friedrich Merz is set to be sworn in as Germany's new chancellor.